Today I'm here to talk to you about electrical safety and lockout tagout. We're going to go ahead and start with electrical safety first. First off, electrical accidents can happen anywhere at any time. It can happen to you at work, at home, obviously, at school, even just being outside. I mean, you're probably not going to get struck by lightning, but I wouldn't go out in a thunderstorm bringing something metal with you. Just something to think about. There's a lot of different ways you can get an electrical shock or burn. Electrical machinery, household appliances like a toaster or something like that, electrical outlets, overhead power lines or power lines that have fallen, light sockets. I only put that one on there because I'm one of those idiots that has stuck my finger in a light socket before and gotten shocked. So just thought I'd throw that one on there for a little idiot awareness. And there's a lot of different other ways that aren't included in this as well. Here's some of the symptoms of electrical shock or burn. You can lose consciousness. You can have muscle spasms, numbness in the body, respiratory issues, irregular heartbeat, skin burns, and you can even die, especially if something as serious like an arc flash happens. Here's some quick tips about electrical safety that I got from OSHA's website. Assume that all overhead lines are always energized at lethal voltages. So just assume that if you touch it, you're probably going to die. It's just a good way to go about that so you avoid those. Never touch a fallen overhead power line. Always you can either hang around and call someone and wait, or just call someone and make sure that it gets taken care of by a trained professional. Never operate electrical equipment if you're standing in water or really just in damp conditions, period. It's never worth the risk. If you have an electrical cord or equipment that needs some type of repair done to it, I would always call a qualified, certified, and authorized professional to come take care of it. Even if you think you can do it yourself, it's probably just better to call someone who does that for a living. Have a qualified electrician inspect any electrical equipment that has gotten wet before turning it on. That might be a pain in the butt sometimes to always get an electrician to come out and inspect your equipment. But again, better to be safe than sorry. And in general, just a rule of thumb, always use caution when you're working near, around, or with electricity. Here's a quick YouTube video I have about electrical safety. It's mildly entertaining, so little YouTube video in a YouTube video, YouTubeception.
So, what seems to be the problem here?
Well, it looks like we have two options here.
Lamar and Ron, keeping it real with electrical safety.
You want to see us, Chief?
Don't call me Chief.
Let me guess. You're trying to take our badges.
You don't have badges. And why are you dressed like that anyway? Disco went out a long, long time ago. I told you to wear proper PPE. You look like idiots.
See that? The man's trying to cramp our style.
We won't let him keep us down?
Look, I hired you guys a week ago because you gave me what I now believe were fake resumes. And after all the damage you've caused and your complete lack of safety knowledge, I'm going to have to let you go.
So what are you saying?
To the safety of my workplace.
Now, we hear what you're saying, but what's your angle?
Yeah, you know men like us can't be bought.
You just put 2 workers in the hospital and caused $15,000 worth of damage. What makes you think anybody's going to want to buy you?
We're willing to take a 50% pay cut.
You're fired. And if you ever want to work in this field again, I suggest you go out there and get yourself some training in basic electrical safety. Now clean out your lockers.
You got a locker? You got one.
We got lockers! Ow! I wonder what's in them.
I don't know.
Oh, it's gonna be sweet.
It was. Woo.
Thanks for doing this again, guys.
Hey, no problem. Compiling a list of electrical safety tips is a great idea.
Yeah, we're glad to help.
Here's a good one. Always inspect tools, power cords, and electrical fittings for damage before you use them. Repair or replace damaged equipment immediately.
Also, remember not to use cords with exposed wires, and do not use plugs with damaged or missing prongs. You should also make sure the equipment you're using is appropriately rated for the job.
Appropriately?
That it's right for the level of amperage or wattage that you're using. Same goes for fuses. If you use the wrong size, it could be a fire hazard.
Hey, Aaron. What's up?
Hey, guys. I was just getting ready to call you. I've got this overheated outlet here, and I'm not sure what to do with it.
Oh, that's another great point. Warm or hot outlets are usually a sign the wiring's messed up.
Yeah, we'll take care of that right away.
Thanks. So you guys conducting some kind of a safety audit or something?
No, they're just giving me some electrical safety tips.
I have a tip for you. I just heard about a guy who was trimming branches out by some power lines. He got zapped big time, all because he climbed up on a metal ladder. That's crazy, right? You should always use a non-conductive ladder around electricity.
Wow.
And I've got a couple other tips for you. Don't ever put your halogen lamps next to combustible materials. It is a huge fire hazard. And you should always use ground fault circuit interrupters when you're plugging in portable equipment near a wet or damp location.
Those are great points.
Yeah, let's go cut off the power to that outlet.
You know, I bet that's another important tip. Always know the location of electrical boxes and circuit breakers.
Definitely.
Take care, guys.
It's also important all breakers and fuses are labeled properly. Each switch should be identified as to which outlet or equipment it's for.
And electrical boxes should be easy to access in case of an emergency, so don't store anything in front of them. It's also really important to note that if there is an accident and somebody gets electrocuted, don't touch them till the current is disconnected.
These are some great tips. I'm going to type these up and send them to everyone.
Glad we could help.
At least mildly entertaining and not as boring as some of the other electrical safety tip videos that I found, so hopefully that helped a little bit. I went ahead and pulled some of the tips that they mentioned in the video just to go ahead and do a quick overview of them. Some of the good ones that they had was always inspect cords and tools before using. A lot of times, I know myself, you take that stuff for granted and don't think to check it before you use it, but if you do check before you use it, you can definitely prevent accidents that way. Always replace damaged equipment as soon as possible. Definitely do it before you use it next. Don't use a plug with missing or damaged prongs. That can throw off the circuit and cause problems for you and for those you're working with. Check your outlets. If your outlets are warm or hot, that definitely indicates an issue, and that should be reported to someone that could fix it. That's definitely a problem. Don't use metal ladders when working around electricity. That kind of goes without being said, but sometimes just one of those things you can overthink. And use a ground fault circuit interrupter when using portable equipment in wet or damp areas. Just that way, in case something does happen, there's a fail-safe there that can keep you safe if something happens. So moving on to Lockout Tagout. Lockout Tagout is a super important part of having a safe work environment, especially if you work in a factory that has a lot of machinery or something like that. If you're a safety manager for a plant of some sort, this is something that's going to be a part of your everyday life. So this is extremely important and a big part of safety. OSHA describes lockout tagout as the control of hazardous energy. There's many different forms of hazardous energy that are included in this, such as electrical energy, mechanical, hydraulic, chemical, thermal, and any other source that can be used in machinery or equipment. So mechanical energy, aka kinetic energy, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Most of you have probably already taken physics, so you've heard this before. It's moving energy, energy that's in the process of being moved. Can be in movements of equipment, machine components, or any other sort of that. Injuries can include like struck by, struck against, or caught on, in, or between, like we went over in class. And then there's thermal, hydraulic energy, kind of just grouped these together. Entrapped energy can be very dangerous because you can't see it. There's no way of physically seeing the energy there, but even though you know it's there. So pressurized moving liquids, which is hydraulic. And thermal energy can encompass many different things, such as like heat or steam. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever had a steam burn, but it can be super painful. Just something to watch out for. Radiation, a chemical reaction, or electrical resistance. So what is lockout tagout? Lockout tagout is it's the process of disconnecting a machine from its energy source and making sure that it's locked and continues to be disconnected until it's completely unlocked and checked again. Before you go and remove that lock and start it up again, you're always going to want to make sure you check your entire surroundings. Take note of where your coworkers are, where your personal items are, and things of that nature. Make sure the machine's in operable condition. Make sure it's in good condition. And just make sure you go through your entire checklist before you unlock it. So tagout is used as if the machinery cannot be entirely separated from its energy source. May it be like hydraulic or something. You place a tag on the device, you sign and date and put a timestamp on the tag to let everyone know that you're the one who put the tag and lock on there. And if you're the one who put the tag on the machine, you're the one who needs to take the tag off of the machine. So it's the same process as lockout, but that just means that you can't necessarily remove all of the energy from it. Here's some important tips for lockout tagout. Don't neglect residual energy. Like I just mentioned, there may be some stored energy in the system that you can't necessarily see, but never ignore that and always assume that it's there. Clear your workspace of all your personal items. Whoever applies the tag removes the tag. So if you put the tag on there or the lock on there, you're going to be the one that comes and checks it and takes it off and makes sure that everything's in good condition. Always do a thorough check of the machine and the surrounding areas before restarting the machine. It's the most important part. And lockout tagout training is an ongoing responsibility. So it's not like you get trained on it your first day and you're expected to follow it for however long it goes on. Training must be continuous, and you must always be working with this with your safety. One more important tip is that your employer is always going to be the one that provides you your lockout tagout equipment and materials, such as your locks, your tags, and things of that nature. You're never going to be expected to bring that with you to work. So if your employer is not providing these, definitely make sure you speak to your safety managers and your supervisors that are above you. And if they still won't provide the equipment, that's definitely something that you should take to OSHA, because lockout tagout is extremely important and should never be neglected. Here's some reasons why lockout tagout is so important. It's definitely a vital part of injury prevention. It can injure employees nearby that had nothing to do with what you were working on. If you don't check your environment before you start your machine, you can start the machine, which may move an arm or something of that nature and injure an employee that's stuck nearby. Safe cleaning of jammed or broken equipment. So if equipment needs to be worked on, obviously the next step would be to completely remove its power source or to stop the equipment from being able to be used while it's being taken care of or fixed or whatnot. Just gives whoever's working on it a good peace of mind that the equipment's not going to turn on and harm them or somebody else while they're fixing it. It keeps employees accountable. It's like when you write your name, time, and date on the tag when you participate in lockout tagout, it shows that you're the one responsible for turning it off and, again, checking it and turning it back on for the next time. So it keeps everyone accountable. That way everyone knows who is responsible for that machinery. And not following lockout tagout can result in pretty massive OSHA fines and violations. Here's some more facts about lockout tagout. It's the 5th most common OSHA citation. You see it everywhere. It happens all the time. Employees, companies, warehouses, factories not following proper lockout tagout rules, and that can be a big citation. Injuries from machinery make up 25% of all workplace accidents. That can be prevented with proper lockout tagout. Of course, some of those machinery accidents are going to be from people just using the machinery wrong, but I'm sure some of it stems from people turning on machinery that when there's people in the area or leaving it on when it shouldn't be left on. There's a workplace injury on average of every 7 seconds. Proper use of lockout tagout can cut that down. Like I mentioned previously, employers are the ones responsible for providing a lockout tagout procedure as well as material. It's very important. If you're ever working in a place that doesn't have proper lockout tagout procedure or material, definitely talk to your superiors and see if you can get that figured out. But if they can't, it's something you should go to OSHA about because this is very important. 3 out of 10 warehouses and distribution facilities lack proper lockout tagout procedure. 3 out of 10 is 30% of warehouses and facilities. That's pretty high number. Again, if you're ever in a place that doesn't have that proper procedure, you should definitely try and get that figured out. And annual lockout tagout inspections are required by OSHA. Not really quick, but one more video to show you guys. This is why lockout tagout is vitally important. I'm not going to play this entire video, but I think it's good and educational.
Power and energy are located throughout the facility and exist in many different forms, including electric, pneumatic, hydraulic, chemical, mechanical, and thermal. If energy is not controlled, it can present serious health and safety hazards. Consider these alarming statistics. OSHA has determined that in the United States alone, preventable workplace accidents involving uncontrolled energy sources result in 50,000 injuries and claim 120 lives each year. When it's time to maintain or service machines, equipment, or infrastructure, proper safety procedures require energy to be locked out or otherwise controlled before work can begin. To help maintain safety in the workplace, OSHA and other worldwide health and safety organizations provide rules and guidelines that help companies develop a total energy control program. Compliance with lockout tagout standards is required by law and enforced by OSHA. The good news is that you hold the key to safety in your company. By using a lockout tagout energy control program, you can help prevent workplace accidents and injuries, both to yourself and to other workers. So, what is Lockout Tagout, and when should you use it? Lockout Tagout is a complete program used to control hazardous energy during the servicing or maintenance of machines and equipment when the unexpected startup of the equipment or the release of stored energy could cause injuries to employees. Service and maintenance includes the following activities: installation, replacement, modification, inspection, lubrication, cleaning, and more. The following 4 elements make up a complete lockout tagout energy control program: energy control procedures, employee training, lockout tagout hardware, and periodic internal inspections. Element 1. Energy control procedures. Documentation is key to an effective lockout tagout program. Written procedures must be developed that identify the information that all employees need to know in order to control potentially hazardous energy during servicing or maintenance. This energy control procedure must outline the scope, purpose, authorization, rules, and techniques that will be used to control hazardous energy sources, as well as the means that will be used to enforce compliance. This documentation should contain a statement of how the procedure will be used, the steps required for safe shutdown, including how to isolate, lock, and secure machines and equipment, the procedure for removing and storing lockout tagout devices with a clear designation of the personnel responsible for these tasks, and clear requirements for testing and verification of lock and tag effectiveness. It is important these procedures are machine-specific and clearly identify all energy sources. Element 2. Certified training. Companies must certify that training or retraining on lockout tagout procedures is provided to all employees covered by OSHA Standard 1910.147. The certification program must include keeping up-to-date records of employees and their training dates. Training must take place anytime there is a change in job assignment, change in the energy control procedures, or if an inspection reveals the need for retraining. The degree of training required is determined by the work responsibilities of each employee, who are then placed into one of several categories: authorized employees, affected employees, and other. Authorized employees are responsible for implementing energy control procedures and performing the required servicing or maintenance. Training for authorized employees includes details about the type and magnitude of the hazardous energy sources present at the facility and the methods for isolating and controlling these energy sources. Authorized employees must also receive training on machine-specific procedures. Affected employees, on the other hand, simply perform their duties in the area in which an energy control procedure is being implemented. Affected employees are not themselves responsible for locking and tagging out, and they are not authorized to do so. The final designation is other employees. These workers include office or warehouse personnel who may work in an area where an energy control procedure is utilized. The responsibilities of affected and other employees are to recognize when energy control procedures are being implemented and to understand the purpose of these procedures. They must not attempt to start up or use equipment that has been locked or tagged out and must relay all such requests to the authorized employee on duty. Element 3. Tags. Many types of lockout-tagout products are available to help control energy and enhance worker safety. Specific OSHA requirements govern the use of these devices. Tags and lockout devices must be used only for the specific lockout-tagout application. Both tags and locks must be standardized by color, shape, or size. Tags must conform to a standard print size or format. They are also required to be durable enough to withstand the environment to which they are exposed for the maximum duration of the expected exposure. Finally, tags and locks must be identifiable and must clearly identify the employee who applies them. Locks and lockout devices must be substantial enough to prevent removal except by excessive force, with special tools such as bolt cutters or other metal cutting tools. If you lose your key, your supervisor should be alerted immediately. Tags must warn against any anticipated hazard. Tag tie must be attachable by hand, self-locking, and non-reusable, with a minimum locking strength of no less than 50 pounds. Element 4. Inspection. Each employer must ensure personnel understand and comply with all relevant and applicable energy control program regulations. Periodic inspection of each lockout-tagout procedures must be performed at least once a year by an authorized employee other than the one utilizing the energy control procedure under inspection. These inspections are designed to ensure that energy control procedures are still adequate, continue to be properly implemented, and that employees are familiar with their responsibilities under these procedures. The documentation of the periodic inspections must make note of the machine that is locked and tagged out, the inspection date, the employee responsible for locking and tagging out, and the inspector. When a lockout procedure is inspected, the inspector must review the responsibilities of each authorized employee, ensuring that they understand and can properly implement all steps in the procedure. If it is revealed that there are deviations or inadequacies in the employee's knowledge or use of the energy control procedures, retraining should be conducted. Now let's take a look at some example lockout-tagout practices. The procedures for shutdown and startup should be straightforward. When equipment must be shut down for maintenance or repair, make sure you understand the type and magnitude of the energy, the hazards to be controlled, and the methods or means to control the energy before attempting to shut it down. After you prepare for the shutdown and announce the shutdown to all affected employees, turn off the equipment using normal stopping procedures. Then disconnect the power source or sources to isolate the equipment. In the case of electrically powered machines, this means taking action at the disconnect or breaker that feeds the machine. Do not rely on just the push button or on-off switch. Always disconnect the energy source after turning the machine off. If you disconnect the machine under load, you risk damaging the equipment. Take the time to make sure you have isolated the equipment from all energy sources. Many machines have more than one source of power. After you've turned off the equipment and isolated it from the power source, test to make sure the equipment is isolated by trying the on-off controls or using test instruments.
Okay, so that video goes on for another 5 or 6 minutes, but I think that's a decent stopping point. The video had some really good tips. Definitely try and take some of that advice to heart. there's anything that I missed that was included in that video, I would definitely try and take note of that, write it down. So here's a quick conclusion on what I went over. Electrical accidents can happen anywhere at any time. And like I've said it 5-6 times already, just always be aware of your surroundings, be vigilant, and be aware to any potential threats to you or those around you. If there's something off, just go ahead and take action now instead of waiting. Lockout, tagout, again, is extremely important, required, and is a procedure that should be implemented and monitored everywhere that uses hazardous energy, whether it's on a job site, in a factory, in a warehouse, wherever that may be. It's an extremely important procedure, should always be prioritized, and should always be continuously taught and used. And failure to adhere to the electrical safety and lockout tagout procedures can result in injuries, fines, and even the loss of life. So even though some of these things may not seem as serious on the surface, injuries and deaths and fines and loss of businesses and all kinds of bad things can happen when these tips and procedures aren't followed correctly. So just go ahead and do your best to follow all these procedures and tips. Hope everyone's staying safe. Thanks for listening. Good luck with the rest of the presentations. Thanks.